Good morning. I will try it to be fun because I know it's late already and you've been listening to many sessions. I come from Barcelona. And I think this is the most suitable talk given the current situation. Due to my career, one could say that I'm in the middle of fake news of the latest weeks. Some of them are having an impact on some of the most important clients that we have, and they're obliging us to make a great effort to detect them, then analyze where they come from, so what's the source that's broadcasting it, and then we have to think what's the best argument to counter-argument those fake news actively, or in some cases use silence, or just report it when it's needed. This is a brief introduction, and I think it is important to establish a framework when we have fake news. Obviously, as the moderator was saying, fake news are not brand new. They have been there forever, but the scenario has changed, and the channels have also changed. At the beginning, of course, we were using traditional means of communication. Now we have another paradigm on communication, and we can see that communication has been transforming, and also the different channels where it is conveyed. We also have immediate communication. We are aware of the speed to which communication is transferred. We can communicate things without contrasting it, and we also have we also need some resources, and we need the intervention of the police forces sometimes. I'm going to explain briefly three of the main points I tackle. I'm a teacher in the ICPC, it's a pilot school. I work on branding as a directive officer. We work on research, crisis management, always in the digital sector, and we also do expertise in the digital world. What does that mean? Well, when somebody or a business is attacked, maybe due to an identity theft, or maybe because their social networks have been hacked, or maybe because this person is being bullied from a source, that could be a person that has a personal interest. Well, what we try to do is to try to go back to normal in these difficult situations. We need some judicial power, because we need to measure the impact on the reputation and what the final cost is. And this is analyzed through two viewpoints. So the amount of money that the company has not gained, loss of profits, and also how much this company or person need to invest to be back to the previous point before this crisis. So fake news during those 4 last years are an important point for us. Why? Well, because it requires a huge additional effort by the person or the business. Imagine it's a star or a famous person, to contrast this disinformation. And many of us today have seen something published on the internet that we do not like, maybe because it's an opinion, this can happen, or maybe because it's a piece of information that comes from a source that we cannot eliminate or control. For example, if we appear on an official newsletter or regional newsletter, or if somebody has published something, but you cannot access the original source. So when we try to fight against this, we face a problem, because sometimes legally you cannot fight this, because the direct response of the person in charge of this information, or in this case, for example, the engines Bing, Jump or Google, they are protected by the legislation of their region, and they are entitled not to delete this information. This happens especially especially when the information has been published and the origin of this information are fake news. When we're talking about insults or slanders, is that maybe we need judicial order to the operator or to the search engine, or we cannot eliminate and delete the information. When I say delete, I'm saying deleting the information from the source. So what we can do from our side is to generate the same volume of information so that these pieces of negative information that we do not want to be public go back and we actually establish and make visible the main results, the first results for us. This happens for example, famous people, or maybe we have one hot topic that has been launched as a pilot project, and we have to counteract it. And we are analyzing this for clients that are under this type of attacks, and the monthly investment is not a small one. We're not talking about 3,000 euros. It's a lot of money every month. And if we stop doing this investment, and the counterparts, people that are creating this information, keep publishing information not only in mass media but also in forums or social media, we will lose the leadership of this positioning, and we will start decreasing in the results. And what's happening here? Well, on some occasions, the person that's suffering from these fake news needs to disappear because maybe they're attacking a person, and maybe this person has been unknown for all of her or his life, and this person does not want to be known, and we need to generate another identity with the same name that is not related with this person, so that when somebody is looking for information, he or she will only look and find this information. We will see some cases of fake news. I'm going to suggest two methodologies that we use and some of the applications or websites that are used. I ask you a question first. All of the websites which purpose is to fight disinformation, do we know that the investment fund or the interest that's underlying is completely legitimate and there is no interest underneath it? I cannot guarantee this. I cannot access all of the information so that I can understand who's behind. And this is why I always recommend to use tools to know more or less what's the level of disinformation that's trying to be conveyed, but we also have to use the DIY methodology in the case of videos and images, and also for other types of content, and we have to do more in-depth searches to decide with our own criterion. Of course, we are all segmented here, but at least we will be able to have an additional way to reach this information. This is not new. This is something urgent, and we have to bear this in mind, because we do have the need to have different information inputs, and we amplify this noise in a way because we have a lot of information to different information channels. How many of you have Telegram? How many of you during the last month have subscribed to Telegram channels? Okay, so we do a follow-up on the volume of telegrams that subscribe in Signal and Telegram, and during the last few weeks we have had an extraordinary increase. So we have to have a look at the content on of the information, but also we have to analyze what are the means, because currently we cannot do a follow-up of all of the means of information. Some groups are closed, and In some cases, if you do not have the trust of the community, you will not be able to access it. And if you try to access it to counteract or fight with this disinformation or to know what's happening, and if they know that you, as a user, are not trustworthy, they will publish that you, as a user, are trying to access this information. And this is our reality. So we need to actually bear this methodology in part. The organization will give us this information. I don't have time to explain this in detail, and I think this is extremely important because we have to bear the context in mind when it comes to information. We move on now to the disinformation digital campaigns. They all have an objective that's clear. All of the digital campaigns have a goal. In some cases, the agents that are part of these campaigns are not even aware of this. In some cases, we would talk about bots networks or zombies networks in some cases. Well, this is the same thing. We have users that are zombie networks, not because they are bots, but they are zombies because they are just limiting themselves to retweet the information and passing on the information without thinking that at the macro level these actions can have physical consequences at a security level. It is also really common to see half-truths. For example, we can see how a piece of information has started and ended up. And if you only edit a part of the video, for example, you launch this video with a headline and you know that the public will watch this video and they will put the seal of approval and they will trust in this. Then we have also subjective information that's presented in an objective way. Borja doesn't know what I'm going to say, but Borja Chuara, he's a lawyer, he's specialized in new technologies or in the technological field, and he's really well known, but the role he plays on networks is quite interesting. Yesterday he was talking to a person and he expressed this nuance. He said, "You're trying to explain something as if it were an objective methodology, but we're talking about something that's completely subjective, and this is real. None of us had sufficient access to the information to have a critical way of thinking, but as we were in the same speech line, we thought it was true. Then we also have to talk about emotions. Daniel has explained this perfectly. The emotions are really important. The moment in which something is communicated, it is vital to take into consideration the emotions to know if it will be successful or not. If in a certain speech you launch something, especially when we're talking about audiovisual, maybe you will be much more successful if you do this supported by emotions rather than only supported by facts and objections. We have the systematic distribution of information. Sometimes it's also for a concrete campaign, and some clients hire us so that we can help them to reveal and unveil a fake news. And I have actually clients with which I have a calendar, have an agenda with them. They know that they are season-based, and they know that in some months they will have some problems, and this is why we have to generate continuously information so that we can fight against those fake news by creating a reputation shield. So we have to maybe establish some corporate words and some positive and negative words. For example, the brand name plus some of the negative words that have been used in the fake news, so that when we have a wave or a big disinformation campaign, we can try to have a shield from which we can defend ourselves, and we can launch the same level of information. Then we also have to talk about permeability of the information in the audience. It is curious that only 44% of the Spanish citizens, according to a piece of research done by the Navarre University and the University of Oxford, trust social media and means of communication. Well, it's complicated because we have YouTubers that have over 10 million followers, or many more than these actually. And we have here Ruth Sala, another lawyer and friend of mine, and she's talking about the big celebrities and inner celebrities, and we have opinion leaders. But if you undermine leaders that have a high permeability level, and then you add it to massive opinion leaders, you can undermine the public opinion from different fronts. It's actually a communication campaign, and you have to settle some objectives. We can also have, on the other hand, some campaigns that have the objective to segment the public opinion. Maybe they want to radicalize to different ends of the line. Maybe we can have here government agencies, or we can also use some campaigns to foster a debate. This has been buried for several years, but all of a sudden now this is extremely relevant for people even at the first line of conversations. I bet that when you start a conversation anywhere in Barcelona, in a few seconds, the person you're talking to will try to know what your opinion about the Barcelona situation is. And this is something that's happening because, you know, that this is in all of the day-to-day conversations in Barcelona right now. We have riots there now. Generally speaking, in the disinformation context, we like to see what the analysis of the first confrontation topics are, to measure them. So we actually measure what are the hot topics. And likewise, we will then generate the context that can be more effective. I'm sure you heard about an ancient content, which is demoscopy. This has been done forever, and now companies and people and organizations are using this. It's also interesting to analyze and to create communication platforms of our own. This is extremely interesting because one of the campaigns that Foro Coches is doing, Foro Coches is one of the tools I use the most to when maybe we have to do a piece of research and we have to analyze a tendency. The first thing I do is to look on Yandex, Bing, and Carrot2 to have a representation, a graphical representation of the different opinions that we have, and actually to classify this in different labels. And then I go on Twitter and Instagram and also on Foro Coches, because Foro Coches is one of the networks in which people not only give negative feedback. Well, actually, you know that in Foro Coches we not only talk about cars but about anything. And when you're there and you have an account, please make efforts to have an account on Foro Coches. Actually, I had some students, and I wanted to give them some accounts, but be careful because they tend to ban fake accounts, so be careful with this. But when you enter Foro Coches, you can see that there are many people that go there hours and hours to analyze different threads, and this is an important communication channel and an important way of observing directly. And another interesting topic are the channels of information that's distributing automatically this content. We're talking about bots here. I'm talking about the bots that are syncing the information from Twitter to Telegram or vice versa with extremely simple tools. If you're interested, I can mention them afterwards. So you can generate bots, and we have also another tool that's called If This Isn't That. This is extremely useful if you want to analyze the information from different networks. And actually this is generated to have communities from a volume point of view. This is really important. I'm going to point out something. Is this being recorded? Can somebody tell me if this is being recorded? This session is recorded? Yes? Okay. Well, then I'm not going to tell names, just in case. I need to be careful. When we started some 4 months ago, one of the pieces of research that we have, a channel of Telegram had 600 followers, and now they have 260,000 followers. This is not by chance, and this is not an organic growth. This could only be observed in some situations, and the situation I'm talking about and the situation we're analyzing is complicated, and this is why people who want to automate processes with bots that are making these accounts grow automatically, and this affects and has an impact on the credibility and reliability of the source. I'm going to show you what methodology is used, because this is important, so you can analyze your toolkit. And one of the ways we measure it is the level of diffusion that one means of communication can have. It can be social or Twitter or Facebook user, for example. So now I'm going to go to this methodology part. So please let me give you some fake news examples that were really well known. We're talking about campaigns against famous people, or strategies to polarize ideologies, campaigns that are generating polarization, some of them that go against public health. This one had a lot of repercussion. This is from 2017. We have headlines with audios. This is completely fake, but this has a huge impact because it is key to analyze the emotions and also the moment on which these fake news appear. And also, I'm going to talk about the detection methodologies. My fellow colleagues sometimes tell us, "Oh, Selva, please pass on to me one of the tools that you found on Israel. What was the best tool?" Using tools is extremely efficient, and that's perfect, but you also have to think about the B plan. And what if those tools stop existing because we have many free tools? But you never know who's behind a free tool and who's filtering this information that you're passing on to this tool, because people are saying, "Oh, everything is on an open source." But it's not the same being on an open source and that I can have a panel on which I can see what are the different questions that have been asked, or the analyzed users, rather than if I try to extract this information, because maybe I created this tool to obtain this information, and being able to measure of the hot topics and also of what are the users that make more questions.
So it's very important to be able to do it ourselves, even if we have free or premium tools. So the first thing I mentioned, reverse search in the case of images and videos, and that's the things that become the most viral typically. I've included Google and Yahoo here, and then Yandex, which is Russian, which is especially good for reverse picture search. Then video searches, we have an edition in frames, and then it launches all frames to perform a reverse search of all images. We also have, for video search, we have these three extensions that we use the most: Reverse Side for images, Fake Video News Debunker, and Session Buddy, usually for Mozilla Firefox and Google Chrome. And now this is very interesting. In order to know whether the video is real or not, or the picture, is to see what the weather was that specific day in that specific place. That's one of the indicators that we can have to know whether it's real or not. Who says it? This is very important. Apparently, what's the technical or social identity of that specific user? I'm a very radical advocate of People, this tool. I have the premium version, and I love it. And it allows me to see the associated information of a phone number, a username, an email address, a real name, or, for example, the so-called ID number. Who that person has relationships with, who they communicate with the Facebook username, of the Twitter username. You can have an overview of when that profile was created, what are their connections, what are their sources of information. It's very important to know what their information sources are. And specifically for websites, something that I just love and I can't help it is analyze backlinks. What websites are launching information to make their own positioning improve? That's basic for me. So as I was saying, detection tools also pose some questions. We don't really know who is behind them, what are their interests, why some news are denied and some are not. So we always need to be on guard. Stopfake.org, which was created for the events in Ukraine. That's all I can say. Maldito Bulo, which is part of this news denier network. Chequeado is another one. I'm going to stay here because I want to be able to finish on time. What are the methods being used to let people know that something is fake news and to be able to receive information from anonymous users? I love this safe mail thing. It says it's safe, but I mean, we know that if you want to find out who that anonymous user is, you will find out. But, okay, I like this one very much. It's a Chrome and Firefox extension, or add-in, a plugin, which shows you the number of fake news or allegedly fake news detected within that website, within that information source. There are many general mass communication media with quite a, let's say, curious or interesting amount of fake news detected. This is a WhatsApp phone number, which automatically, when you send them a piece of information, if it's in their database, you get a link with the explanation, and if not, they tell you, we will investigate it and will notify you. Telegram, this is a very interesting Bulo bot. And then this safe mail. I hope this was interesting. There's much more information behind all of these and many examples I can mention. I spent days checking information, and I recommend to go through 2 to 5 rehab from social media and communication media, because the amount of communication, fake communication that we are receiving with an emotional importance, with an emotional element to it, is so impacting that when you look around, you realize that the world has not changed that much. I forced myself to do this several-day rehab in spite of what my profession is, but I do it whenever I can to reset my mind and my set point, and then after it have a more critical vision. Thank you.